My name is Prakash Belawadi. I'm a theatre person from Bengaluru, South India. I want to talk to you about a particular problem that theatre people face, dancers and musicians face, those of us who actually depend on the performing arts to continue as artists that we face. And that problem is that a show that is not here and not now is not really a performing art for us. I'm not speaking for everybody. I guess there'll be lots of people who accept this idea that you can actually open a play, premiere a play and sell tickets for home viewing. But the experience of watching the play at that venue, as the actors perform, to be sitting in the hall and watching is very different from watching it at home, through a mediated, a recorded medium, even if it's in the same time. Because for us, here and now means that we bring our bodies to the performance and the audience brings themselves in body to the venue. We have the same shared time space where from the performing side we try to build a narrative, and in the audience an experience happens, which is this is the relationship of an experience and aesthetic that happens between the performing side and the receiving community. I use the word community because performance is always local and the audience is derived from a community. For a while we'll keep aside, the great professional show venues at the London West End or in Manhattan. We are talking about what it means to be doing shows that are not on Broadway or the West End. We're talking about theatre that happens everywhere in the world, in places where these performances thrive. They are created in the community, they are performed to the community, and they're nurtured by the community. There are close to 600,000 villages in India, and every village in India will have its own performative tradition, whether it's folk or modern theatre, whether it's drama and performance or just music, or sometimes so folk that there is no separating the performer from the spectator, because both of them are actually observing, being part of the performance in their own way. I'm talking about those traditions that do not depend, that have never depended in thousands of years maybe on recording. You create an experience that only survives in the community of the audience, that makes the audience as an aesthetic. And for us, the pandemic brings to us a very important lesson, why it cannot be business as usual. Again, I'm saying I am not talking about really big shows, that actually do not have to thrive because only of a community. They can travel, find communities where the narrative is transportable in some way and receivable in some way in that community. I'm talking about about shows that make sense only inside the tradition of the community, the culture of the community, the food, the seasons. I'm going to give some examples to illustrate these points. We have a tradition in my state of Karnataka, of which Bengaluru, my city, is the capital. In our coastal districts, we have a tradition called the Yakshagana. Now, I don't know how far it goes back, certainly for hundreds of years. And they derive most of the stories from the great Indian epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, and also from the Puranic mythologies of India. Now, these shows are performed all night, typically, when it's season where performance is possible, because in the coastal districts it could rain 4 or 5 months of the year, and they're mostly farmers. They must actually go back to farming, which could be their main occupation. But in these traditions, when all night this show is done, it is done without a written script. It is based on the wit of the performers. They can actually make up dialogue extempore. It's mixed with song and dance and music. It's called Yakshagana. Now, within the Yakshagana, there is a sub-tradition called Tala Maddale. That means it depends only on sound and speech. And that Tala Maddale are 2 instruments, and there is speech. That is all it depends on. No costume, and no makeup, no great masks, that are part of the Yakshagana tradition. And they do it because the community that actually nurtures this art form, this performance form, which is a mixture of dance, music, and dialogue, they actually are so addicted to it that they want these performances done even when it's raining. So they actually assemble in small spaces where people just sit around the performers, and they do it without changing their daily wear, whatever they're wearing. They just sit, and on the spot they exchange ideas on what roles they should play within the group that is available. And 4 or 5 performers will perform 6 hours, 8 hours, all day. And it's full of wit. They can take up current news, what has happened in the Indian Parliament, or what's happened in the State Assembly, what laws have been passed, what scandals are brewing where. They can mix all that in a story that is drawn from the epics from thousands of years before. And they perform all night. Now, how popular are these? I'll give you an example of a Yakshagana tradition where a performance is given to the deity of a temple. Now, there are 2 temples in these coastal districts, which are actually dedicated to a deity. These temples are of the deity, and then the performance is given to somebody who's perhaps taken, saying, "Let my business do well, I'll dedicate a performance to the deity," or "Let my daughter pass her entrance exam to a professional college," and it can be anything. So they the temple actually let them collects money and does the performance. But because it's so popular, they allow 10 entities, individuals or institutions, to come together, give the to do one performance, because there are too many there are so many demands for performance as an offering to the deity. So each of these temples has 6 or 7 troops performing every day in season, each doing it to a group of 10 people. So that is I'm saying 70 performances perhaps every single day. Or it's actually 7 performances to 7 entities correctly every single day. Now what happens is that if you want to make a booking as an individual or as a family or a company or a business house or an institution, when your turn would come. The last I heard was it could take 20 to 23 years. This is possible because it thrives in the community. It does not need to go anywhere else, because nowhere else it may be understood. Now there's a diaspora of these districts around the world, and whenever if anyone decides to travel, they can do the same thing there, because it's a thriving, living tradition that thrives in the memories through generations. Now the thing is, when we do business again as performers, we may have to draw inspiration from these forms. I'm just mentioning one. There is in the state of Kerala we have Kuchipudi and we have Kudiyattam and Kathakali. We have dance traditions of Kuchipudi in the neighboring states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. We have Bharatanatyam in most South Indian states. We have Manipuri. We have Odissi in another state of Odisha. We have Kathak in large parts of North India. We have so many classical traditions that have lived for many, that have survived for many centuries. And we cannot depend on a recorded medium. It has to be here and now. There's something sacred about time space that is shared with the audience. We invest, as a member of the audience, I would invest time, energy, and effort for this experience. And the actors and the technicians who do light, sound, or perhaps music, they all have to come together for every show. So this is something where recording will make us second class. And some of us, and maybe many of us across the world, I would believe most of us who come from these performative traditions cannot accept it. So what is the solution? I think we cannot do business as usual. We perhaps have to get smaller. That does not mean we should not do shows of artistic ambition, but we don't have to do them with the scale that requires very large gatherings of audiences or the need to travel to festivals in the world to actually exist with large sponsorships backing us. We have to depend on a community that needs the show, and we need the community to do that show. I want to give just one example of what we have done with the play we developed in Bangalore, written by a friend of ours. I'm not going to mention any name because we're not plugging anything here. And we developed a play out of a short story. It was about the complaint of sexual harassment in the workplace, but it is satirical and slightly farcical, not exactly disrespectful to the idea of harassment in the workplace. But then, after the show had done maybe 20 or 30 performances, we came across this great movement of Me Too, and we had to become sensitive. So we had to mold the show to become different. This is no different, than performance venues for sports. The home crowd influences the way a player plays, or the confidence that a player gets, or the spirit with which he operates. It could be negative, there could be too much pressure too. We see this, who doesn't see this? Whoever watches sports. This is true everywhere. So somebody to come and perform a great classical musical piece from a great composer in, say, Carnatic music, it could make an audience that understands that music weep. But this may not happen anywhere else in the world. And these traditions have survived for so long. And like in the tradition of, say, Yakshagana, I've seen a show of Kudiyattam by great performers, where they bring to you an aesthetic of the immediate and urgent and modern without changing text. Just with, it doesn't even have, Kudiyattam is such a beautiful art, it doesn't even have speech. That is dialogue. Actually, the speech is just given at the beginning of that section of the performance in Sanskrit, from the epic, and then it is just performed with gesture and movement. And that is enough to indicate to you to the audience a real here and now contemporary thing. So I don't think I'm speaking on behalf of all the performers across the world. Everyone may have their own solutions, but I would say for theatre to survive, it needs to become local first. The pandemic may go away, but the lesson is that it may not go away. Maybe we'll have to live with this kind of thing for a long time or forever. I do not want to talk about climate change. It's not my topic, but I would think it's everybody's topic, and we don't know what disasters we'll need to be prepared for in the future. But like they did in the world wars, like they did in that place in Sarajevo, I think, where somebody described it, the bombs had made it 2D. There was a secret, there was an underground film society. We must have an underground theatre society everywhere, or an overground theatre society if it is not so oppressive. And maybe we should be happy to do small performances of great artistic ambition. That is the way forward, I think. I don't think every one of us, as I said, wants to subscribe to the recorded medium and become second class across screens of the world. We want to perform here and now with an audience. Thank you very much.